leave during that time. So let's go ahead and flip back to page 382. The Importance of Being Earnest. This was perhaps his most famous play, a very funny play, marked down in the italics before we get into this, that this is a satire on the British social structure. So in this play, he's really making fun of British social structure, and we see the fact that, a guy can't marry a girl unless he fits into certain social classes, and the girl won't marry him unless he has a certain name. So really the point of this play is to make fun of British society and how socially, you can never advance or marry someone unless you fit certain qualifications and things like that. And then make sure you mark the two people in this play who are trying to get married, Jack Worthing and Gwendolyn Fairfax. All right, before class, I had some people who volunteered to come up and read some parts. So Brittany, you go ahead and come on up and you can read the part of Gwendolyn. And Micah, you can go ahead and come on up and read the part of Jack. Now, Jack Worthing, his name, he goes by Ernest. So people think his name is Ernest. He really knows that his name is Jack. And that's going to present a problem here in a little bit as we see this. Notice where it says the importance of being earnest. It's spelled a little differently than earnest. It means being sincere. So there's a little bit of pun in the title as well. All right, go ahead, Jack.
Charming day has it been, Miss Fairfax?
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
So her mother is out of the room at this time, so he wants to take advantage of that opportunity. Go ahead.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you, and more than any girl I have ever met, I met you.
Yes, I am quite aware of the fact, and I often wish that in public, at any rate, you have been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far more indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. There is nothing in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
Yeah, so Micah saw the only thing about you that really makes her want to marry you is the fact that your name is Ernest. At least so she thinks. All right, go ahead.
Hey, you really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Ernest.
But you don't really mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is. But supposing I was something else, do you mean you say you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life, and as we know them.
Personally, darling, I speak quite candidly. I don't much care about the name Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Yeah, she goes, there's nothing wrong with the name Ernest. It produces vibrations. She says, I really like this name. So he's trying to see if she'll still love him if she finds out his name really isn't Ernest. Keep going.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say that I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, is a charming name.
Jack? No, there is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than unusually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the intricacy pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
So we said we need to get married before she finds out my name isn't Ernest. Go ahead.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You believe that I love you, and you led to believe me, so, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity, and it spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing. I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am very determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn?
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Well, yes, but you don't say it.
So he goes over. He gets a special object.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I've never really loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They're quite blue. I hope you always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
All right, now Lady Bracknell enters, so go ahead and stay there just for a second. You're still on one knee when she comes in. So Morgan has agreed to play the part of Lady Bracknell, and so you can go ahead and go close to the podium, Brittany, so Morgan can stand beside you. All right, and Morgan, Lady Bracknell answers.